Hello, welcome. I'm Peggy, and yes, I'm in the kitchen today, and with somebody very special. Rhonda Matthews is here from Clemson University, and she has tasty meals for the family and recipes that she's very gracious to share with all of us. Thank you for coming.
I always enjoy it when I come and visit with
Now,
you.
you call this midweek meals.
It is.
Quick
just
and inexpensive.
inexpensive, easy to get to the table, good for any time of year. So this is just that humble, everyday fare, but we're just going to take a look at it, maybe slightly different than what someone that's watching is doing, and they'll get a brand new idea.
I think that's great. Well, so what do you have? What is this?
Well, what we're going to do today is a hamburger steak, and we'll do it with ground beef today, and we'll talk about that. We'll do a little gravy to go on it. We're going to do a couple of yummy vegetables to go with it. So hopefully at the end of everything, we'll have everything ready to go on the plate all at one time. So we're going to start with what takes the longest to cook.
All right. Yeah.
So I've just bought a bag of the baby carrots, and I've got a little bit of water that we've brought up to the boil ahead of time. So if you don't mind, I'm going to pass that over to you.
You want all of these in
I do.
there?
Go ahead and put it right on in there.
Okay.
There you go. That's all we're looking for. The nice thing about buying bagged vegetables like this is they're ready to go. Did we have one that jumped? There you go. You caught him.
I got him.
They're ready to go. They've been washed. Sometimes they've been chopped, and they're just this open and used.
These are like small, so they'd be bite-sized almost.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. And so we're going to add just a sprinkle of salt in there to go with it, just to jump that flavor up just a little bit. So the next thing we're going to do is, while this cooks, and we'll just let him sit there and do his thing, he'll come back to the boil very shortly, and it's probably going to take our carrots 8 to 10 minutes, and they'll be tender and ready to go.
Okay.
So in the meantime, we're going to get started on our main entree, and so we're going to do a hamburger steak today. We're going to do it with ground beef. The nice thing about doing this kind of entree is you don't have to always depend on ground beef. You can certainly use ground chicken, ground turkey, ground pork. If it's able to be shaped into a patty, it's fair game for this.
This is a versatile recipe. You can choose
absolutely.
whatever you want.
Right. So, and we've actually bought the 73-27 fat to lean ratio of ground beef because we're going to wind up using the pan drippings to do a little bit of gravy. So all I've done is I've got some basic hamburger meat, patted it out until it's roughly the size of your hand. This is a very generous serving for anyone, and then it's about a ½ inch thick. So we've got our pan, and we're bringing it up to temperature. We want that pan really hot, and I'm feeling it's warm, but it's not quite hot enough yet. Let's give it.
The handle feels hot.
All right, so it's coming along, and we're going to go ahead. I'll lay this first one down.
Now, have you put oil in there?
No, we didn't.
We're gonna need to.
Not
All
yet.
right.
This one is a little bit of a non-stick pan. You can tell that pan is well loved. It gets used a lot at my house. So we're going to go ahead and start with our other burger about the size of our hand, and we'll lay him down in there. Let's get him a little bit of room. There we go. Now let's go ahead and we will do a little bit of seasoning on here. We're going to give him a little hit of salt, and I know you're not the biggest fan of extra salt, so
I don't use it.
That's certainly up to the family that we're cooking for. If they're lower salt,
And you know,
leave
you
it
can just not put it in and let people add it as they go along
Absolutely.
if they want to.
So let's go ahead and give it another little shot. This one is garlic powder, not
right.
garlic salt. This one is onion powder. There we go. I hear the sizzle coming on now. That's what I was wanting to hear. And the last is we're going to give it a heavy shot of black pepper. Now, this looks like a lot of seasoning because it's all sitting right up on the surface, but even if you're going to use any kind of ground poultry, the turkey or the chicken or the ground pork, you're probably going to want to double the amount of seasoning you add to this. Those are very bland ground meats, and you have to give them a helping hand to get the flavor where you want it to be. As a matter of fact, when we do pork or turkey or chicken burgers at my house, I'm very likely to start rummaging through all the herbs up there as well, and
Okay.
they're getting added to the patty. So
All right, the more the merrier.
well, with those, yeah, you're exactly right, because the flavor's just not where you want it to be. I don't know that I would be proud to put one of those bland patties on the table, but if you help it along with a little extra spices, it'll get to where you need. So this is the kind of sizzle that we're looking for. We're going to give it 3 to 4 minutes on this side, flip it 3 to 4 minutes on the other side. So I'm going to move this back. There we go. Our carrots are starting to come back up to the boil, and that's exactly what we wanted. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and get our spatula out. When this is nicely seared and we're starting to see the cooking coming up around the edges, we're going to flip it. We're looking for a nice crust on the bottom of this patty. So if you're peeking under there and it's not, I call it crunchy. If it's not crusty or crunchy yet, leave it alone. Let the heat keep doing its job, and then turn it. That crunch is what makes the difference between edible and yummy. So give it enough time to build up that crunch. All right, so this is doing what we want. We're going to hold on to all these pan drippings because we're going to make a gravy with those. In the meantime, we're going to move on and prep the other vegetable that we'll have, and we'll have to stop in just a minute and work on these again. So we're gonna do in another pan, we'll do a little bit of a mixed green. We're looking for very quick cooking, so we're going
This
to
is like almost like a full meal in one.
Oh, it is. It's not going to go in this pan. We've got a different pan for it, but slice everything very thin. Small carrots, thin patties. We're going to do a very fine, thin slice over here.
They're simmering right now.
That's perfect. That's what we want. And we're going to get this as thin as we can go, starting with about, a quarter of a head of cabbage. So we're going to go very, very thin on this and get that prepped. There we go. That's about enough on that. We'll set him to the side. There's another little bit that we can work on. This particular greens dish has got an apple in it. And sometimes when I tell folks to add an apple to their greens, they give me the most quizzical look. And that's okay. I understand. But the idea here is we're going to have a little cabbage, a little kale, a little onion, and a little apple. It all cooks down very nicely. The traditional way, of course, to cook greens is a little pinch of sugar, a little pinch of salt, and then a little bit of fat. Well, we're going to use olive oil today for the fat, and the apple and the onion cook down to a nice sweet tart, and so it all balances out very, very nicely when we put it together. And of course, this is the time of year for greens, so they're economical, they're easy to find. So you might as well go ahead and enjoy them while Mother Nature's providing them for you. So these are looking about right. And you can see what we were talking about. That's right. Right around the edges, we're seeing that brown start to creep up.
So then you know it's okay to turn it.
Yeah, so let's take a little peek underneath it. Still a little bit tender. All right. So we're starting to see that crustiness right there, and that's what we really want. Yeah. So that's going to be where the goodie is. That little bit of crunch is really tasty. All right. That one looks nice too. So we're going to let them sit there, continue to do their thing. We'll leave that spatula right on the edge so that he doesn't streak up our counter. Our carrots are doing beautifully, coming along nicely there. So let's go ahead and finish with our greens.
So this is a complete meal.
It is. And hopefully we're going to get everything done at the same time. And so if you do this at your home, everything comes done at one time. You can sit down, fresh hot food on the plate. You're not waiting on anything at all. And you're just ready to eat in a short period of time. That's the way I like to do it at the house. Everybody's hungry when I walk in the door and they hit me with, what's for dinner, what's for dinner, what's for dinner.
Well, so these are quick and sensible, nourishing, and yet not terribly expensive meals to prepare. And is that what you would say?
Absolutely. I couldn't have said it any better. So you want it quick to the table because if you've got teenagers or hungry husband at the house, they're ready to start filling their belly. So they're not interested in waiting an hour or 2 hours for dinner. So we've got cabbage chopped, we've got apple chopped. Let's take a look at the other green we're going to use. That's kale.
It's my favorite.
It is good. And you know, kale, interestingly enough, when it came on the scene, so to speak, everybody just thought it was the end-all, be-all. And it is. It's incredibly nutritious.
Very good for you.
Absolutely. Loaded with the B vitamins, loaded with fiber. It's a lot of goodie in this vegetable. The hubbub has died down a little bit, but I think that has to do as much as anything with people have just kind of embraced this vegetable, and it's not the new kid on the block anymore. It's just the good neighbor, and now we use it all the time. So when you're going to work with fresh kale, you see what I've done. I stripped that big stem out. Now that stem is edible, but you, well, it's going to take a while to cook this. This part cooks down super quick. This is going to take you a while, so we're going to strip that out. And then our remaining, those carrots are doing perfect. We're just going to cut that into very small portions. Kale cooks down quickly, not as quick as fresh spinach, but it'll do it. It'll cook down very quickly. So I've stripped the stems from these already. We're going to go ahead and give it a rough chop so that we wind up with fairly small pieces of greens. They'll cook very quickly.
All right.
There we go. And this is going to look like an insanely big mound of kale, but it cooks down to almost nothing.
Okay. While you're chopping, we're going to go to a quick break.
Okay.
But I wanted to tell people, if you would like this, all these recipes in this folder, plus the information about nutrition, it's yours free for the asking, thanks to Clemson University and my friend Rhonda Matthews. What we need from you, if you can, is a self-addressed stamped envelope, and send it to the Peggy Denny Show, Post Office Box 1616, Greenville, South Carolina, 29602. And we have lots of letters that come in here. So we need a number. And the number for this recipe is 1016. 1016. And we'll know exactly what you want. So now we're going to go to a break and come right back while Rhonda's getting everything ready.